Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Pete here with MixBetterNow.com, and today I want to address a question that I get all the time, and that is, why do you use two separate MixBusses? So let's go ahead and jump in and check it out. Okay, so we're inside our Pro Tools, and this is a rare tutorial where it doesn't really matter which session I use for this, because I do the same thing in every session that I mix. So, really, it's not contingent upon program material. But here, I want you to pay attention to these two Burgundy tracks. So we have the submix and then we have the mix bus. Okay, these are my two mix buses or my two stereo buses, whatever you want to call them. This is the Losing End from Zach Jones and the Tricky Bits. I'm going to play a little bit of this for you so you can hear it. I want you to just pay attention to these two tracks, and then I will explain to you basically what I do and why. All right, here we go.
I should walk away from you. Yeah, I know it's for the best. Every time you're in my arms, I forget about the rest. It is hard to be waiting patiently while you're trying to find a way to leave him behind. Either way you go.
Okay, so as you can see from the mix window here, we have two different tracks, two different mix buses, and two different types of metering. Okay, so that is basically the first reason. This is like how the whole thing came to be. Was way back. Gosh, I forget what version of Pro Tools it was at this point, but I think it was Pro Tools 7. That was when I kind of switched over and started using Pro Tools. The first DAW that I worked in was Logic. So I came over to Pro Tools, and I found a couple advantages by using a submix and a mix bus, or two mix buses, whatever you want to call it. So the idea here is my submix is where all of my processing will go. So all the compression that I'm doing, all of the EQ that I'm doing, any harmonic saturation, any limiting, things like that will take place on the submix. And then my mix bus is the actual master fader track, that you will create inside of Pro Tools. So if you're a Pro Tools user, you will know that when you open a blank session, you're going to basically have to load in all of the tracks that you're going to use, a master fader being one of them. So the idea was, way back in Pro Tools 7, I like to use an auxiliary send before my master fader because it gave me another perspective on the metering. So I was able to look at it in a different way to see where my peak level was at and my RMS level was at in relation to the master fader. Now, in Pro Tools 12, we have the option where we can right-click on the fader, and we can pick all of these different metering options, which is wonderful. And I certainly take advantage of that. So over here, I use the linear option, and then here I'm using the sample peak. So that way, I'm just able to look at two different tracks and kind of see where my loudness is at. And that's kind of where the whole thing started. Now, the second reason that I used an auxiliary send or a bus, which my processing goes on, and then a master fader, is so that I have two different options to automate with. So for example, one thing that I love to do when it comes to automation time for me is I like to make my choruses louder than my verses. So for example, I have my markers all set up top here. All right, verse 1, chorus 1, verse 2, etc. So what I'm able to do is that if I want to make chorus 1 2 dB louder than verse 1, and I want to bring it back to unity for, say, verse 2, I can easily just draw in my automation. So if I want to do it on my submix here, now this isn't, I'm not doing it precisely, but I can just highlight it. I can drag this up a couple dB very quickly. So that's 2.5 dB louder. And, right away, that's some very easy automation to write in. Okay, I can come over here to the second chorus. I can highlight it and I could do the same thing. And then I like to make each chorus a little bit louder as it goes. I like the last chorus to be as loud and dynamic or I should say louder and more dynamic than the previous couple. So it's a very easy way to do that. So if we listen to this verse going into this chorus, you'll notice the volume jump.
To appear, but I know that he's still near. Either way you go, I'm the
Now I exaggerated it there. Like I said, it's not exact and precise right now because I just eyeballed it and I drew it in, but you get the idea, right? So I can actually elevate the levels of the loudness when it comes time to kind of draw in my dynamics with automation. So now the main reason that I use two separate mix buses or two separate stereo buses is because one is processed and the other is not. So I like to refer to one as being dirty and the other as being clean. Does that mean one is physically audibly dirty? No, it just means that one has processing on it and the other does not. So I'm sure you're all aware of mix bus processing. The concept of having your master fader and putting something like compression and EQ on that. Well, I do that here, but I like to have a clean and an unprocessed fader or a way to get out. So the way that I remedy that is I will set up this auxiliary send or a bus. Same thing. Doesn't matter the DAW that you work in. The concept is the same. I also work in Studio One a lot. And in Studio One, I will set up a bus that I will call a submix, and then I will have the master fader as well. Now, the concept for this is very simple. There is some audio that I will want to send out of the main stereo out unprocessed. What do I mean by unprocessed? I don't want it to go through my mix bus that has my mix bus processing on it, because with certain things, like for example, some drum samples that I might use, they might already be compressed and EQ'd, and I don't want to send them through another stage of compression and EQ because it's going to change the way they sound. So if we take a look at these two here, you'll see on my submix, I have certain things like some compression, all right? I'm using the API to compress. I'm using something like the digital V3 here from Brainworks to EQ. Using the black box HG2 for a little bit of harmonic saturation. So, these are very common things you'll find on a mix bus. But if you look over here to what I call a mix bus that is actually the master fader, there's nothing on this that is going to impart any tonality to the audio. So I'll put things on here like metering. All right, so here's a meter. We've got another meter here. I use some other things to reference, like the Audified Mix Checker, the AB from Sample Magic. But the point is that all of these plugins do not impart any sound alteration to the audio. So let me show you what I mean. If we go up to the drums, I'll solo up the drums. I am using a kick sample and a snare sample in conjunction with this kit. So if we solo up all the drums here, let's go to a chorus. Here's what the drums sound like by themselves. Over on the verse. So this is exactly what I'm talking about, where I like to send certain drums, namely the raw acoustic pieces, out to things like my kick bus, snare bus, which will eventually go to my drum bus, because there's processing that occurs there. So it's going to get things like compression, maybe some tape saturation, things like that. But if we listen to these drum samples, they are already compressed and EQ'd straight from the manufacturer. So on the kick and the snare, I'm actually using samples inside of Trigger, but I'm using samples from the Loop Loft. And the way that they sound, they are just already processed. So like, for example, here's my snare drum. And the way that I have it set up is that it is 100% the sample, okay? So if we go and listen to the snare top, and I turn off the gate, and I turn off the reverb, it's gonna sound very different. So if we listen to the sample again, the sample via trigger already has the sound sculpted and ready to go. So in a case like this, I will send these triggered samples, the same with the kick, I will send them out to my unprocessed mix bus because, like I said, I don't want them going through another stage of compression. I don't want them going through another stage of EQ because I already like the way that they sound. So essentially, in summation, the reason that I use two separate mix buses is I have one that is clean and unprocessed, and then I have one that is dirty, and processed. And I can dictate as to which audio I want to send through the mix bus processing, and then I also have another option to send the audio through the unprocessed mix bus so that it comes out of the speakers as you're hearing it in the track. All right, so I hope that gives you guys a little bit of insight as to why I use two separate mix buses in my sessions. If you go ahead and sign up for the email list, you will receive my free audio swag bag, which contains my templates for Pro Tools, my templates for Studio One. We have a template for Logic Pro. We also have a template for Cubase. So if you go ahead and you sign up for the email list, I will send you my free swag bag. You will get this, and you will also get a much more in-depth explanation of my template and my workflow and why I do all these things. So if you'd like to download that and drag it into your own session and check it out, you're more than welcome to go ahead and check out the email list. It's a great way to stay in the loop as well. So that's it for me. My name is Pete with MixBetterNow.com. As always, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you watching. I hope you have an awesome day, and I will catch you next time.